Well, the playoffs are about to start, and we are going to get ready to talk the AFC playoffs here on another edition of Snap the Pigskin. Hello, everybody. I'm Noah Clark. We're going to break down all of the NFL action today. Well, actually, we're going to talk a little bit about the AFC and the playoff picture or the playoff preview, and we're going to get a little bit of predictions. We also are going to talk Black Monday as that happened, and a lot of coaches got fired, including one shocking one that we will reveal today that just happened a few minutes ago. So today for this episode, it's going to be a shorter one. We're going to be a lot quicker, a lot shorter, because this is going to be a two-part episode. I couldn't fit the AFC and NFC playoffs in one episode, so we're going to do both of these together. And the next episode for the NFC is going to come out tomorrow, and we are going to actually have Sam Gemini on the show to talk Packers-Bears and get his thoughts and his prediction on what that game is going to be and how meaningful it is for both of these teams to be playing. So let's get right into it. Let's start with our first headline. And usually we have, this would be our first down or whatever, or first, second, third. But let's start with Black Monday as it struck, and it struck in a big way, as a lot of coaches fired, a lot of GMs, only two, fired. And now the search begins for some new leadership moving forward. Here are I have it on my phone. I have it pulled up for the landscape. The Giants, Titans, Falcons, Cardinals, Browns, Raiders, and the newest one that just got announced just a few minutes ago, like 45 minutes ago, was John Harbaugh being released from the Baltimore Ravens, being fired from the Baltimore Ravens as the head coach. John Harbaugh had been there for 18 plus seasons in Baltimore, and now his tenure ends. Baltimore, since the Ravens began their run as an organization, as a franchise back in 1996, when they were the Cleveland Browns, they have only had three head coaches. Ted Marchibroda from 96 to 98, Brian Billick from 99 to 2007. Brian Billick won a Super Bowl with Baltimore in the 2000 Ravens. And then John Harbaugh from 2008 to 2025. So this is only their fourth ever search for a head coach opening, and is probably one of the more coveted jobs, but it's also one of the more coveted head coaches. And teams are going to be looking to try and snag a coach like a John Harbaugh. But let's get to overall the landscape of what has happened. And I want to go back and jump back to our last episode when we had several teams that needed it, that I said should fire this coach because of what the situation is and what is happening and all that stuff. And it actually happened. I mean, it legitimately happened. Last week I talked, the Falcons should fire, or not the Falcons, the Cardinals, the Browns, the Raiders should fire their coaches. And the Cardinals, the Browns, and the Raiders did fire their coaches. The Steelers did not. A different AFC team, though, the Baltimore Ravens, did fire their coach, which mind-blowing to think about. But here are the head coach. As I said earlier, from the head coach openings, there are a ton, and there's only two GM openings: the Falcons and the Dolphins. And to go with it, so whoever the head coach is going to be for the Falcons, they're going to also have a new general manager in there as the organization cleans house in Atlanta. But backtracking with that, I do think the three moves that all these teams made, the Cardinals firing Jonathan Gannon, the Browns firing Kevin Stefanski, and the Raiders firing Pete Carroll. And the Raiders firing Pete Carroll makes a ton of sense. Like, it made the most sense out of all of them because you look at how bad the Raiders were. I mean, the Raiders are going to get the number 1 overall pick this year in the NFL draft. Like, they are bad. And not only are they going to get the number 1 overall pick, but they're also going to have to pick a new head coach. And from what it sounded like, I mean, the landscape of it in Vegas was not relatively good. Not a good environment. I was reading something earlier today that the O-line was having their own meetings while Pete Carroll's son, Brennan Carroll, without who is the O-line coach, that he was not there. Bad overall season. I said this with the Raiders. I said they need to. I said this. You can't go without Pete Carroll. You can't go with Pete Carroll being your head coach next year. And look, I'm even going to say this too. Now that Pete Carroll is gone, you can't go with Geno Smith being your quarterback next year. And that's what the number 1 overall pick is going to do. They're going to instantly go out, get themselves the top player in the draft, probably a quarterback, whether it's Fernando Mendoza or whoever, it's going to be a fresh start. And whoever the head coach is going to be, like, it's going to be a tough situation. And I'll jump, and even with the Raiders, I mean, who the candidates for the Raiders, who would you have out there to even make a hire like this? I even look at this too, and I say this is going to be the hardest one out of all of them because no one wants to go coach there. No one wants to coach for the Raiders. I mean, you look at it, no one wants to go coach there because of how bad the landscape is right now with the Raiders. I mean, you look at with Vegas, and you look at just how frustrating it is, and how frustrating it's been the last few years. I mean, you go from Josh McDaniels to Antonio Pierce to Pete Carroll, and those coaches have only had a span of 2 seasons or less. Like, Antonio Pierce had half a season with the Raiders and was successful enough that he got the head coaching job, and then struggled down the stretch of the season and got fired. Like, even Josh McDaniels had 1 season. Like, it's tough. It's tough being the Raiders head coach because if you don't get success right now and right off the bat, your team is screwed. Like, you're screwed, and you're very much in a fireable offense. And that's where I think this job makes it very, very hard. It's not an attractive job. You do, yes, get the number 1 overall pick, so you really can hope that you really hope the Raiders can get a quarterback and just build that roster. But I don't know, man. This is a tough situation to do. And just a tough situation to be in. And so, yeah, I don't know. It's the least attractive job to me. I think also to the second least attractive job is the Cardinals, because actually not true. The third worst. Second worst would be the Titans. I think Tennessee, yeah, you have Cam Ward, but Tennessee, they don't have any building blocks around Cam Ward. And that's what could really make this frustrating for Tennessee is they don't have any building blocks. If anything, if you're the Titans, this would be the year you should think about trading Jeffrey Simmons and trading him to see if you can get some draft capital out of it, because you're not going to get any better with the roster you have. You might get worse. So there's that one. Cleveland, now moving on from the Raiders and to the 2 other teams. Cleveland is another job that is very interesting. With Kevin Stefanski getting fired, he was a 2-time coach of the year. And here's the other thing, and I do understand this. Like, I understand when these general managers and owners fire a coach, there is a reason. There's a reason. There's a reason for the owner to fire the guy. Now, fans may not like it, but this is what it is as a business. It's a business. And if the business isn't thriving, they have to make some changes. So, with the Browns, back to the Browns, is why I say this is because Kevin Stefanski won 2 Coach of the Year's awards, two Coach of the Year awards. He got the Browns to the playoffs twice in that tenure. That's the most by any coach in the past decade plus. And by the way, he got them a playoff win. Something that that the Browns never had in a long, long time. And they fired him. And I said this last week. You fire a head coach. If you fire a guy like Kevin Stefanski, it's going to be because if there's one thing that he did not do well, it was he didn't choose the quarterback. He didn't have a quarterback plan set in place. And they had Deshaun Watson, who was supposed to be their guy, and he's hurt. And then on top of that, he's not playing well. And you had Baker Mayfield, who was playing well, but the fans didn't want him. And so the organization kicked him to the curb. And I can't realistically seeing this job either being a good job because you don't know what the quarterback situation is going to be. You drafted. I mean, remember too, they went into the draft and free agency and basically went out and redid their entire quarterback room. Like they had Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Dylan Gabriel, and Shedeur Sanders. And by the end of this season, like they finished the year with Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders and as their 2 quarterbacks. They finished with 2 rookie quarterbacks to finish the year. That's not good. And it does fall on Stefanski. And I do understand, if you have to get the most important position in football, right? Like otherwise your team's just not going to go anywhere. And he did such a phenomenal job getting that Brown team to where it was at. I do think that this is a firing that I don't think comes back to bite him, but I do think the next coach that they bring in, he's going to have his hands cut out for him. He's going to have his hands full. He's going to have his work cut out for him. And just, it's not going to be an easy fix for the Browns. Now, the other attractive jobs here on this list, I'm going to put obviously the 2 big ones that I look on the list here are the Ravens and the Giants. 2 most attractive jobs to me. Why do I say that the Ravens? Well, obviously with the Ravens, it's so obvious, but the Giants, it is, to me, New York is a very attractive job. New York is a very attractive job. I know the Giants, they have the number 2 overall pick again this year. Number 2, number 3 overall pick again this year. They're in the top, 5 this year in drafting. But you have to look at the Giants and look at this team and where they were at and to where they finished, where they started, where they finished. I mean, it took them week 4 to start Russell Wilson, or to start Jackson Dart, and he should have started right at the beginning of the year. You also look to, they lose Malik Neighbors. They lose Cam Scatabo, who was having a really good season, and Malik Neighbors finally looked like he had a really solid quarterback, and they lose both those 2 for the season. So you don't have your go-to, you don't have your stud running back, your stud rookie running back who was playing well, and you don't have your stud wide receiver who was playing well. And basically their season just kind of fell down the tubes after that. I mean, Brian Dable, yeah, he did have a big ego complex. A lot of people said, his ego really is what killed this team. And I've heard this before too. Coaches can have a big ego and they can be very, very stubborn people. So when you have a coach like that has a very, very big ego and can be very stubborn, that is a big problem. And I just it is what it is, and it's tough. But here's the bright spot about this with the Giants job. The Giants job is very attractive because they do have the roster. They have the roster. They have the pieces. I mean, you have some key pieces, especially on the defensive side. You have a really good defense. You have a really, really good front. And I think if you're any head coach that comes in that situation, you could build that defense up so quickly. That defense could stay that defense could be really good. I know under Shane Bowen, towards his second year, they were just awful. Uh, but they have the pieces. They have Kayvon Thibodeau, Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, and Abdul Carter. If Abdul Carter can figure out some stuff, they have that front four. You have pieces that you can build with on the defensive line. Then you look at the offense. You have Jackson Dart. Maybe if Jackson Dart is there next year, and they build something off of him, and then you have Malik Neighbors and who's coming back from an injury, Cam Scatterbo, who could be coming back from an injury. Like they have pieces. They have pieces on that group, and whoever the coach is, and whoever takes this job, it's going to be a really, I think, easy fix because they have basically some of the pieces in there that are key essential building blocks for this team. Now, the only problem is with the Giants job, you're playing in the NFC East, which is run by the Philadelphia Eagles. This is a division that is really the Eagles division. I mean, they, for the first time in forever, won the NFC East in back-to-back seasons. I mean, it was a runaway in the division. Nobody could compete with the Eagles at all. So that is the one challenge, but I think the other big thing is it's big market, New York. You have all the pieces there in place to not have to think, okay, this is going to be a 5-year plan. No, this could be a 2-year plan with, the right, coaching. And I do feel bad for the Giants, whoever the Giants head coach is going to be, because they do have to deal with Joe Schoen. And Joe Schoen has not had historically a good tenure of drafting, but you look at the pieces that they have. I mean, Malik Neighbors and Cam Scatterbo. Like Cam Scatterbo, too, by the way, was a poll in the day 2, day 3. And he did trade for Brian Burns. He also did draft, I believe, Dexter Lawrence, and he drafted Kayvon Thibodeau. So he's done a good job in some places in drafting talent. Now, it could be another situation where, like Jacksonville, if the head coach doesn't like the general manager, the owner could fire the general manager just to try and get this head coach. Just throwing that out there. That's a big possibility. But the Giants, that is a very attractive job to me. It's a big market, obviously, but they have pieces there that if well coached right, could be a successful team. And then obviously the number one job now on this whole head coaching search is the Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore is a really attractive job because they were a missed kick away from winning the AFC North. They were a kick away. Like literally they were a 44-yard field goal away from winning the AFC North, going to the playoffs. And if Tyler Loop, and even too, let's think about this for a second. If Tyler Loop makes that kick, like we're not talking about this. We're not talking about this on this show. We're not. Like John Harbaugh is not getting fired. But because of that, now here we are. He's fired, and now the Ravens have the most attractive gig. Whoever comes in and whoever the head coach is going to be, they don't have very far to go because they don't have very far to go. That all you really have to do is come in, bring in some stability, bring a fresh new mindset into this team, and go win some games. I mean, you have Lamar Jackson, you have Derrick Henry, you have the offensive line, you have the playmakers, you have you have Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, if he stays, Zay Flowers. You have pieces on the offense, and then on the defense, you have a really good defense. You have, a really, really good defense that played really well at the back end of the year. Like they have a team that is relatively good. And so I do think that whoever the head coach comes in, like this is another case where it's a classic case of whoever the head coach is, the reason is why it's an attractive job is because there's already an established quarterback. This is basically a team that just needs a new fresh, face in the room, and they could get it going and they could be contenders and winners again. I mean, it's so simple. It's such an easy job to take too. The one problem is you're competing in the NFC or the AFC North, which is one of the tougher divisions in football. It is not an easy division to win. and is not an easy division to win. You have a lot of those. You have like the Bengals, who could be good with Joe Burrow. You have the Bengals, the Steelers, pending if Mike Tomlin wins this game. Who knows? We'll see. But it's an attractive job. It's a very attractive job. I will throw that out there. Now, who could we see for candidates for some of these jobs? I have a few on the list, and I said this last week about this guy. I'll even start with the first guy on my list here. Brian Flores should be out the door in Minnesota and should be, getting interviews and should be getting a head coaching job next year. I mean, what an incredible job Brian Flores has done with that Minnesota defense. When he came into Minnesota, like I just have the numbers. When he came into Minnesota there with the defense, their total defense, they were 17th in the league when he came there. And mind you, the year before they were in the bottom of the league. They were 29th. And he went 17, 3, and 2 in total defense for that group. And this year, like, they finished the year on a 5-game win streak. Now, and the 5-game win streak was solely because their defense, every single game, kicked some major ass. Like they every single game came out there and told you that you're not going to beat us. And now I look, I mean, it would be shocking. This would be another one of those type of things where it's like, it's a classic. It could be like Ben Johnson. Like if Ben Johnson, like this could be like if Ben Johnson stayed when Ben Johnson stayed in the Lions. If the Vikings find a way to keep Brian Flores here, immediately make Minnesota a contender next year because they're going to have the guy that gets it done on the defensive side. You don't really have to worry. And you still, offensively, if they can figure it out with JJ McCarthy and they give him another year to just develop in the offseason, or even find themselves a quarterback that can, they could compete with. I mean, just something. They could be a contender next year. But Brian Flores' name is going to be, I should be mentioned in a lot of these conversations. I think he really got shafted in Miami too when he was the head coach. I mean, he got them to a 500 record, I believe. And the ownership and the front office still fired him. And they brought in a guy in Mike McDaniel who's only made the playoffs like once, twice in his tenure as the Dolphins coach. I mean, and still hasn't got a playoff win. I think if Brian Flores were to stay there, he probably would have got them a win. And And so I do think Brian Flores is definitely going to be a candidate for this job, 100%. Now, obviously, the next one I will say John Harbaugh. He's going to be the big name thrown out there, top candidate. He's been with one team for 18 seasons. He's won a Super Bowl. He's won a Super Bowl. He has the pedigree to get teams from from worst to first really quickly. He knows who to bring in for his staff. He knows, the NFL really in and out. And I think whoever gets him as a coach, they're going to be finding themselves a really good leader and a guy who can change the culture and who can set the tone for the culture in that organization. So obviously, you got to go John Harbaugh. Uh, Vance Joseph from the Broncos, I put out there. I think what he's done in Denver this year has been spectacular. They have a really elite defense this year. They've had guys, they've had elite defense this year. They've had guys, like they've had guys this year. And you also look too, they finished the year like they finished the year leading the NFL in sacks this year. Like they were the best defense when it came to sacks. They were a top 5 defense this year, and they proved it week in and week out. And they get the number 1 seed, and the postseason rolls through Denver. And the last time the postseason rolled through Denver was the 2015 playoffs when they won the Super Bowl with another incredible defense. So it would be hard pressed for me to say, Vance Joseph should get another crack at a head coaching job because he did have a head coaching job in Denver, and it didn't turn out well. It was a bad deal from the start. Like Denver didn't do their homework. They just basically said, let's go and hire up and coming guy. Now Vance Joseph, I mean, he's had time to just sit and groom himself to being a really good coach under Sean Payton. I do think that this is a good fit. I think it could be a good fit for any team who brings him in because the defense has been phenomenal in so many ways. So many ways. So I give him all that credit. Who else is out there on the list? Jeff Hafley from Green Bay. I had to think of that one. But Jeff Hafley from Green Bay, DC. I do think that Jeff Hafley stays another year. I personally, I do think he stays another year. Just personally for me, I don't think he has the NFL head coaching pedigree yet down. What I do think that a lot of teams will look at, though, is how well he's turned this defense around and how stellar they are. But if you're looking at the field, if he doesn't get the Ravens job and he doesn't get the Giants job, I think he stays. So if there's a head coaching candidate that I maybe would potentially check off my list, it's Jeff Hafley. So, but other than that, he has had head coaching experience, was the head coach at Boston College. I know I said, yes, he doesn't have the NFL head coaching pedigree, but he has head coaching pedigree. But again, college is different from the NFL. You're coaching college kids. The NFL, it's more grown men. It's a grown men sport. So he's one that I think could be up there. It's hard for me to see him leave, but the job he's done in Green Bay this year, especially after he got Micah Parsons after the Micah Parsons trade, like it would be hard for me to not see him. It would be hard for me to not see him leave and take a head coaching job. So that's one. Man, I'm trying to think of the other list because I wrote down on my phone the 2 that were big candidates, and Brian Dable. I'm gonna throw Brian Dable in that mix. Maybe Brian Dable gets another head coaching job. I don't know if it's gonna be with the Giants. Maybe he gets an OC job and then works his way up back to a head coaching job. That's one that I could see. Cliff Kingsbury. Every year, I feel like with Cliff Kingsbury, we're saying his name because just, he's already had NFL head coaching experience. I mean, he did get the Cardinals to the playoffs, but I also look at the Cardinals. They kind of fell apart at the end of the 2021 season after they lost to the Packers. So I don't know if I can give him that much, but who knows? So those are a few coaching candidates that I could see. Obviously, there's going to be more. Obviously, there's going to be more candidates. But those are a few that I think could be looking at head coaching jobs that could potentially get an opportunity to go prove themselves and be a leader. So, GM openings, we have to talk. I'll talk a little bit about the GM openings because there's only two. The Dolphins and the Falcons, whoever the general manager is for the Dolphins, man, he has a rough. That one is going to be an interesting hire, and I'm very curious who the Dolphins will hire because they have a real. This is another team that I think needs to, just tear it down and start all over and rebuild their draft capital and like go overdrive in tank mode and just, send guys left and right and trade guys left and right. I think, but I will say this: you do have Mike McDaniel, whoever the general manager is, and whoever comes in and becomes their manager. You have to really see what Mike McDaniel can bring to you if you give him a good quarterback, which is why I say this: if you give him a good quarterback, because he's been stuck with Tua for the last 2 years, and he really hasn't had a quarterback that can run his offense, the way he wants it to be ran. So that's one thing. Atlanta, man, it's clean house. Atlanta, man, that is a tough go because you have Michael Penix and you have Kirk Cousins, and the last general manager kind of is going to screw this guy over because he drafted a quarterback for the future that just retore the ACL that he tore in college, and the other guy is very much in his mid-30s playing on a very expensive deal. Now, they did restructure it, but still kind of like, yeah, I don't know how Atlanta, I don't know who would want to take the Atlanta job. That's a tough job. So, yeah, that's the Black Monday conversation. I do, man. I do think that this will be a very interesting head coaching search. There's a lot of jobs out there. Last year, too, was a good coaching cycle. This year, I think it could be a good coaching cycle. Wild. All right, moving on from the Black Monday because we did a lot. We're going to talk the AFC playoff preview, and finally we're going to get into our AFC playoff preview and our predictions. The AFC was very interesting this season, and the playoff race gets even more, or the playoffs are going to be very interesting moving forward as we get set. And the teams who are playing for a chance to go to the Super Bowl are the Broncos, who have the 1 seed, the Patriots with the 2 seed, the Jaguars with the 3 seed, the Steelers with the 4 seed, the Texans with the 5 seed, the Bills with the 6th seed, and the Chargers with the 7th seed. And the Chargers will be playing every road game until maybe the Super Bowl. So the AFC, what I will talk about with this is Denver. Very interesting Denver Broncos team. Their offense was iffy throughout most of the season, but their defense is legit. This is another one of those kind of teams where the offense has to have a couple big plays to get this team going in the right direction. Whether or not it's going to be the good direction, who knows? Now, I look at a couple of these matchups and we'll get right into the matchups, but there's some good matchups that are happening. And this may be the best playoff field we've seen in a long time. And I said this at week 1. I said, imagine, week 1 was insane. Imagine what the playoffs are going to be when we get to when we get to the postseason. And here we are. And I like all these matchups. I like all these matchups because all these matchups relatively are close. So don't expect really a blowout in any of these games. I just don't see it happening. I don't see it happening. So let's get right into it. Let's start with the first game on the list here. And let's start with the Jaguars and the Bills. This is the first AFC playoff game that's going to happen. The Jaguars or the Bills are going on the road to Jacksonville. Last time these two teams met in the playoffs, Jaguars won this game. The Jaguars won this game, and this ended up being Jacksonville's playoff run where they went all the way to the AFC Championship game. And we know what happened after that, a phantom fumble, a fumble that didn't get called a fumble against the Patriots. In that game ends up being, the key piece that leads, that basically gives New England a chance to go to the Super Bowl, where they win the Super Bowl, their last one. But I like the Jaguars and Bills in this game. These are two really good teams. These are two teams that so far this season, man, they have both been so red hot. They've both been so red hot. You look at down the stretch of the season, for the Bills, I don't think, and let me look at it. For the Bills, Buffalo finished the year. Yeah, so Buffalo, you look at it at the end of the season, Buffalo finished the year with a 5-1 record. They only had one loss at home. But Buffalo, all season long, has blown out teams. Like the last 5-6 weeks of the season, they have blown out teams relatively. They have scored repeatedly 30 plus points, 20 plus points or more. And if you're a Bills team and you have Josh Allen too, I mean, this is out of one of the very first times that I've seen, and maybe the only time where Josh Allen has a legitimate shot to the Super Bowl. I mean, he doesn't have to play Mahomes, doesn't have to play Joe Burrow. He doesn't even have to play Lamar Jackson. So now it really is his path to the playoffs and his path to the Super Bowl. One problem with that, though, is you have a Jacksonville Jaguars team that also has been really hot and really, really good down the stretch of the year as well. I mean, I talk about you want to talk about the Bills and the Broncos too. I mean, the Bills have been dominant. The Jaguars have made it look like child's play among teams. I mean, Jacksonville, their last loss was against the Texans in week 9. It looks like week 9 or week 10. And since that time, Jacksonville won their last 8. They won their last 8 with an average score with scoring 19 points or more. And on top of that, too, a lot of these games that I'm looking at here, they've scored at least 20 points or more. And I mean, looking at these scores, I'm looking at these scores right now. You look at Jacksonville from the Chargers all the way down to the Titans at the end of the season. From the start of their win streak to the end. 35, 27, 25, 36, 48, 34, 23, 41. I mean, they've scored down the stretch of the year twice in the 40s. Their offense is rolling. Their offense is hot right now. And Liam Cohen, should be the prime nominee, should be, one of the prime nominees for Coach of the Year this year. I mean, the job that he's done after how bad of a start it was for Jacksonville, given the fact that, yes, they started out first 5 games of the season, But they lost two brutal games, and everybody thought, well, Jacksonville might be falling apart. Well, they finished the year 14-2, or they finished the year not 14-2, excuse me, 13-4, and they win the AFC South. They win their last 8. They win the AFC South. They've scored 40 points twice this season. And this is the team that I, frankly, will say no one's talking about. They're the 3rd seed. Nobody's talking about them. Nobody's talking about, how about the Jaguars? No, everybody's talking about the Bills in this game. And everybody's talking about Buffalo and how good Buffalo is going to be. And this is Josh Allen's time because he doesn't have the big three big bad wolves. Watch out for those Jags, man. They're tough to beat. They're going to be tough to beat. So now for the prediction, why I've been hyping Jacksonville up, I'm going to go Jacksonville in this one. I got the Jags to win this game by 3. I think Jacksonville is going to win this game. I think they're going to win it close. I could see this game being a barn burner, though, where neither defense is stopping anybody. I mean, this is a game where both defenses, I think, will go. I think both defenses are going to have to rely on one or the other offense to screw up, and a turnover has to be forced, and that's how it alters. But, man, I could see this game being very high scoring. I could see Jacksonville winning this game close. I see them ending the Bills season. I got the Jags winning this one by 3. And I got the Jags winning this one by 3, and they win their 9th straight game and move on to the divisional round of the postseason. So next one on the list, Chargers and Patriots. This one's an interesting one. New England, number 2 seed. It's another team. Mike Vrabel in his first year as coach for the New England Patriots. Incredible season. You look at it the year before, New England was bad. They go out, make some new moves. They proceed to rattle off they proceeded to rattle off a ton of wins, and it's a lot. There's a lot of W's on here on the win category, but they only lost one game in their big win streak of, was it 10 or 11 plus games to finish the year, and they won 14 games. They only lost 3. That is the best record, and they finished with the best record in the National Football League at 14-3, or excuse me, they were tied for the best record in the National Football League at 14-3. Denver is also tied with them at 14-3, but New England, with the 2 seed, I mean, if you were to tell me that the Patriots were playing as the 2 seed, I would have told you. I said, is Tom Brady playing on that team? But New England this year has been really good under Mike Vrabel. They've won the games that they're supposed to win. They've won the games that that they should win, that they absolutely should win. And closing out the season, I mean, they've just dominated teams. I mean, they've been consistent week in and week out. There has not been a game this year where the Patriots did not score more than 20 points all year long. They've scored more than 20 points. And their 3 losses this year, the Raiders, the Steelers, and the Bills. 2 of those teams are in the playoffs. They can get another crack at one of these 2 teams. I love what Mike Vrabel's done. And I keep saying that a lot, but Drake May and the offense looks really good, and the run game has been really established with Travion Henderson, Ramondre Stevenson. You have that offensive line looking really good. You do have Milton Williams potentially coming back for the postseason, Will Campbell coming back for the postseason, which are huge adds to that team. I like the Patriots. For the Chargers, this is a game where Justin Herbert, I think, is going to go ballistic too. We've seen Jim Harbaugh the last couple seasons make the playoffs, or at least last season we saw him make the playoffs. This year we see him make the playoffs with not as good of a team. I do think the Chargers uh, make it interesting. But at the end of the day, this is going to be one of the only few games where I see them not being able to pull it out. I get New England winning this one. I got Patriots by 7. It's there really isn't much to talk about this game other than the fact that like I do think it's going to be close. I think Jim Harbaugh and Jesse Minter, they're going to dial up something for Drake May, and this is Drake May's first playoff appearance. So, you know, we've seen in the past with Jim Harbaugh what he can do in terms of game planning against really good quarterbacks. And for Drake May, him being his first start, I think he's going to be a little bit rattled, but I think New England gets the win. I see them winning this one by 7 over the Chargers. I see this game getting kind of out of, I don't see it getting out of hand, but I think Herbert needs to keep them in this game. I just don't think that you can keep going with the weapons that you have. You need Justin Herbert to throw the ball 40 times in this game against the Patriots. So, and then the last one on the docket for the AFC playoff preview, and this one's the only one. And I said all these games were close. This is the only one. I had to flip back and forth of how close it's going to be. But Texans and Steelers this is the last game. This is the Monday night game. Aaron Rodgers playing what could potentially be his last home game, or his last NFL game. Potentially, we don't know. Who knows? He may come back. We'll see. But this is potentially Aaron Rodgers' last playoff game as a quarterback in the National Football League, and he plays the Houston Texans. Man, what a road it was for the Steelers. And I'll talk a little bit about the Texans here before I get to the Steelers. But with Houston's been playing, kind of on autopilot the last few weeks. They have just been, the AFC South got very interesting. But the Texans, they hit a bit of a rough patch at some points. They struggled to win some games. You look at it, how the season even started. They started out 0-3, and everybody thought they were done. And then they proceeded to go out and by the end of the season, they win 9 straight. They win 9 straight to go to the postseason. I mean, another team that started out bad, turned it on down the stretch of the season, and walked into the playoffs. Now, they didn't win their division, but they found, I look at this team, they found a really good success with CJ Stroud. The defense for Houston has been elite as well. I do think besides Denver's defense, I think the Texans defense is also very elite. D'Amico Ryans has done a phenomenal job in getting that defense to where it needs to be at. And I think this is going to be a very interesting game. And on the other side of this, the Pittsburgh Steelers with Aaron Rodgers. Man, I give a lot of credit to Mike Tomlin and the Steelers, man. I mean, this is going to be a fun playoff game to watch. And who knows? I mean, you even look at just where the Steelers were at to even get to this point. I mean, it is incredible how they even got to this point. I mean, the Steelers had a very, very up and down season. Like, they won their first game, then they lost against the Seahawks. They won 3 straight, then they lose 2, then they win 1, then they lose 1, then they win against the Bengals, then they lose 2 to the Bears and a brutal 1 to the Bills. And mind you, Aaron Rodgers didn't even play for the Bears game, but they were still able to come in and make that close. And they lost a brutal 1 to the Browns, a 13-6 game where they could have wrapped the division up, but they proceeded to win, 4 out of the last 5, including a big win over the Ravens, in which their kicker missed the game-winning field goal. And here we are now where the Steelers are playing for a chance to go to the next round. I mean, and the odds are not in their favor. The odds are very much not in their favor to win this game. Pittsburgh has been, I mean, just so erratic this year. They have been so up and down. They haven't played well on the defensive side. You know, TJ Watt's been banged up in and out of the lineup. The one bright spot is they do get DK Metcalf back, but even with DK Metcalf, man, this is going to be a tough game for this Steelers team. They have to figure out how to get between the Texans defense, and they have to figure that out, you know, relatively quick, because otherwise they could be one and done. I will say this: if the Steelers lose this game, Mike Tomlin's out the door, like John Harbaugh. I don't see Pittsburgh keeping Mike Tomlin if they go one and done here against the Steelers or against the Texans. Now, if Aaron Rodgers finds a way one more time to win this game against Houston, incredible stuff. And at his age too, the way that he's been playing, that'd be incredible stuff right there. Unfortunately, though, for my prediction for this one, I got Houston winning this one by 10. I think it's in Pittsburgh, but I can't see the Steelers relatively making this game close. Aaron Rodgers, I think, can only do so much, but at his age too, he can only bring you so much to the table. I see the Steelers team losing, and I see Aaron Rodgers' season coming to an end, and maybe his career coming to an end in Pittsburgh against the Houston Texans. So that's tough to hear, but hey, it's going to be a fun playoff run. It's going to be a fun AFC playoff picture. And with that does it for us here today on our show, and that does it here for us here for part 1. Watch Snap the Pigskin on YouTube. This episode is going to be uploaded right away. We're going to do part 2 tomorrow with the NFC. So feel free to watch us on YouTube and watch this episode also wherever you get your podcasts, and Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, iHeart, etc., etc. And for those of you that have been listening, please tune in tomorrow. We will bring you part 2 with the NFC playoff picture coming up on another edition of Snap the Pigskin.